Do on my end?
No, I'm clicking the button. Hello, and welcome back to another coffee conversation here at Reiki Cafe University. We are so excited to be with you guys today. Let us know over in the chat what you're drinking, where you're watching from, all of that good stuff.
Hold
And Christine, do you want to put
on.
us side by side so everybody can see us? Do you need to mute yourself again?
Yeah. Okay, we should be side by side.
Are we side by side? Okay, there we are. I see us.
There we go. Okay. Now I think we're good.
Great. Okay, well, hello. Hello.
There, perfect. Gosh, it's so interesting. Like I've muted YouTube and I have to mute it over on what pops up. So, well, thanks everyone for joining us over here on YouTube.
We
And
are so excited to be here. Christine, I can see you even have your cup today.
I have my lovely cup today. Like I got up a couple hours ago and I'm like, okay, I have to make my coffee last because I had a coffee conversation this morning. It needs to last. But yeah, this is one of our beautiful cups. A good cup of Reiki is one of our lovely Reiki Cafe cups that you can buy on Etsy. So yeah, I'm really enjoying my my Reiki Cafe University cups because I recently moved. You guys haven't figured that out. Like I recently moved and I didn't want to buy any of our merchandise until I didn't have to move it because I knew it was imminent. And so now I've got all these really cool mugs and I get to feel my energy and my house and all of the things, and it makes me happy.
Yes, and your house is stunning. I have loved everything I've seen of it. I just look at it and it's like, oh, it's Christine in a house.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been great. This morning I was dancing in my house and giving gratitude for my house. And it's so nice to be able to feel fully alive and in my body and present. And I think that kind of goes right into our conversation today with sacral chakra, inner child work, and just being able to tap into that carefree spirit of just movement and laughter and joy that should be inherent in our childhood and our and really helps bring out the inner child to do those things as an adult. So welcome. Here's our coffee conversation. We're going to get into all of the things about inner child and sacral chakra connections and really feeling into that place within us of recognizing that our inner child may not have gotten the childhood that we desired. And we have an opportunity as an adult to welcome our inner child into the present day to nourish her now. So this isn't about like going back into the past and revisiting your traumas and your wounds. It's about bringing your inner child to the present moment and being able to connect with them here.
Yeah. And so before we dive into today's topic, just remember that this is part of our 7 weeks of chakras series for the remainder of the year, which is beautiful and crazy all at once that we're wrapping up 2023. But for the remainder of the year, we're doing 1 week for each chakra. So we're currently on sacral chakra, and then we'll be moving through one at a time. And we have so many amazing resources for you guys, whether it's here on YouTube, on the podcast, over in the Reiki Cafe community Facebook group, on our newsletter. So many things are happening to keep you guys really grounded, really connected to yourself, to your healing process all throughout, especially this holiday season as we're ramping up all of the festivities and the celebrations and everything that goes into that, knowing how that can impact our energy. And so this is a really fantastic invitation to allow you to step back into a space where you are focusing on yourself, where you're making sure that you are prioritizing your own well-being on all of the levels and allowing the chakras to be the lens through which you do that so that we can make sure that every single aspect of our well-being is taken care of, because that's really at the end of the day why we always come back to the chakras, because each one of them is giving us that lens of this particular aspect of our well-being, of our psychology, of our energy, of our spiritual health, etc. and allowing us to really hone in and really focus on that area so that we can find balance and harmony when we work through all 7 of them. So today we're talking about sacral chakra. And what I love about the chakras is how layered they are, right? It's not like we just say sacral chakra and it's only inner child. Sacral chakra has so many different elements to it, like the creativity and joy and sexuality and all of these things. But what we're focusing on today is your inner child, because oftentimes, particularly as we step into the holiday season, there can be a lot of emotions that come up from your inner child in this time of life. And so I really want to start, as we always do, with our definition of what is your inner child, because I think a lot of times this gets confused and it can bring up a lot of tension, because when we talk about our inner child, what we're really talking about is that space within us that remembers everything that we've experienced, that holds on to that childlike state, and that has all of those memories encapsulated within us. If we think about, in quantum physics, how there's not a timeline. Time doesn't happen past, present, future. Time is all happening now. Everything is happening now. We just happen to be experiencing this particular point from our particular perspective of consciousness. And so when we think about that, my favorite way of explaining it is like time exists on the head of a pin. It's all right now. Our inner child, all of our different ages, all of our different experiences, all of our different memories are happening now. They're still active in our energy and in our consciousness. And so when we go back and we go into ourselves to begin our inner child healing, what we're really doing is we are first and foremost acknowledging that part of ourselves, because it is so important to do that. It is incredibly easy to just say, well, I'm an adult now. I'm grown. I'm past that. I'm not a child anymore. But we all have within us that inner child, that part of ourselves that is still there, that has that energy and that is still active and is playing out in our sacral chakra. And when we can invite them to the conversation, when we can step back in and say, no, you know what? My inner child is there. I do have this space within me that has the potential for great healing and also to be an amazing part of my everyday life. That's when we're really opening the door for this conversation to happen, because we have to acknowledge that we have an inner child that needs our attention before we can do anything else. So Christine, I would love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really interesting because I think as adults, we really do our very best to shove our past down and not recognize it. So we'll be triggered, but we don't want to actually go, where did that trigger come from? And so as most of us are in victimhood mode still, we take our trauma, we take our inner child wounding, and we shove it down so that we don't have to recognize it, look at it, feel it. And so as we shove it down and down and down until it's down in our root, it's down in our sacral chakra, it's down in our solar plexus, wherever it wants to originate and connect with, right? And so when we are avoiding those strong emotions, so let's say the trigger happens, you get upset, and instead of getting curious of going, why did I react the way I did? Wonder what that's from. We have our trauma response. We just blow up, whatever it may be, and we don't actually get to what is underneath it that's cultivating that type of response. And so as we push things down, and they harbor there, they find their little nooks and crannies, slow down your chakra flow, and you just live in this pattern. And so this is an opportunity to move from victimhood and into empowerment, to not let the trauma and the triggers control your life. So how often are we living from a response mode? You have the stimuli coming in, you activate, you respond. And this is like the typical pattern. And so
Let's see, is she frozen or is it me?
way I did? And what did it have to do with my
Christine, you froze there for a second.
heart?
You said, oh, you're freezing again.
See.
There you are.
Oh, am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, where did I leave off from?
You said typical response pattern.
Okay. So we're in the middle of a typical response pattern. It means that we have a stimuli coming in and we're just automatically responding to it. And the key word there is automatically, meaning that there isn't a conscious part of our brain to slow us down that says, wait, hold up, why are we responding the way we are? It's just automatic, meaning it's coming from the subconscious, which means it's coming from a deeper part of ourselves that is trying in some way to be defensive. It's trying to protect us for survival mode, right? And so this is the way we typically will go through life if we don't work on our healing. And so this is the invitation to slow down and go, get curious. Why am I responding the way I am? Where is this reaction coming from? What does it have to do with the way I was raised, with the trauma of my past, with the wounds that occurred? And to go take some control back and going, do I want to live my life this way? Do I want to continue to repeat these patterns, or do I want to shift and change so that I can create and manifest the reality that I desire? And so that's the invitation. That's the invitation of doing inner child work, is that you have the opportunity to shift your life. We're moving from autonomic nervous system response, from subconscious beliefs, from self-sabotaging behaviors, from limiting beliefs and patterns, into awareness, into empowerment, into I understand why my body wants to react this way. I understand why I want to get really angry every time my mom says this specific word, or I get every time a birthday comes around and I'm triggered, right? We get to look at where is it coming from, and then we have a choice. We get to make a conscious choice. And once we start making conscious choices, and it's all about slowing it down and breathing through it and going, how do I actually want to respond? If I was fully in my power, if I was fully in my conscious higher self, how would I respond here? And so this is the work that needs to occur. And how we get there to heal our inner child can be fun. And I think that's the thing, like, it doesn't have to be scary or hard or, reflecting on all of these inner childhood wounds. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to take that route. We can do it in such a playful, joyous way that releases you from captivity from your past.
Right. And I love everything that you just said. And there's so many things in there that I want to touch on, starting with, there was a phrase in there that you said of moving from victimhood into empowerment. And those are such powerful words. They're also such buzzwords right now too, like they really are getting thrown around quite a lot. And so I think when we're talking about inner child work, it is really important to understand that at the basic level, that is what we're doing, is we are moving from this state of being beholden to our past and being stuck in our subconscious patterns and attached to these triggers that we have because of these wounds we haven't healed. We're moving from that into a state of being able to make an empowered choice, being able to understand that we don't have to react that way. We don't have to stay stuck in those patterns. And this is really what's so important to understand about inner child work, is when we're talking about moving from victim mentality into empowerment, what we're talking about is we're moving from being unaware of your responses, unaware of why you're reacting the way you're reacting, and into being conscious of it and able to make a change. And so there's two things in here that are really important to understand with inner child work, is when we're talking about the inner child, we have to think about, what are our subconscious patterns? What are the things that we are stuck in, and where do they come from? Because what's happening when we are born up until the time we are around 8 years old is our subconscious mind is forming. We don't have a conscious filter when we're young. We don't have beliefs about the world. We don't have ideas about who we are, who we aren't, what we can or cannot do. We pick those up from other people. We pick those up from our life experiences. We pick those up from the world around us. And we create this network in our heads, this framework of this is how the world works and this is my place in it. The problem with this is that we are creating a framework based on someone else's opinion that we have been taught to believe is a fact. And this is so important to understand, because a lot of times what happens is we are going through life and we're playing out these subconscious patterns and we're living inside this framework we've created in our heads about how the world works. A really easy example of this is your relationship with money. Like if you grow up hearing money doesn't grow on trees, you have to work hard for money, money is the root of all evil, all of these things. And we think that that is how life is. We think that these statements are facts that everyone experiences, that they are just truths of the universe. But when we look at them, when we step into inner child healing, what we're doing is we're giving ourselves the opportunity to realize that these statements, that these quote unquote facts that we are living our lives based on, were actually someone else's opinion that we didn't have the mental capacity to question before we took them on as our own. We didn't have the ability to ask ourselves, is that true? Because we're kids, right? We didn't have that power. We didn't have that opportunity. And so we took these experiences from other people on as our own, right? This is why generational trauma gets perpetuated, which is an entire different conversation, but you can see the cycle there. And so when we can understand this, when we can understand that our inner child is just playing out the scripts that it was given at the time, and that those scripts were just based on other people's scripts, it opens up this door, this other way of looking at it that helps us be able to go, okay, wait, maybe I can question this. Maybe I can go back and say, what if that wasn't true? What if this wasn't how it had to be? What if what I was taught was wrong? And even just the act of doing that it requires so much courage and so much curiosity. And that's again where moving from being in that victim mindset of these things happen to me, I have so much to work through, I can't do it, it's too much, all of these things, into I have a choice, I have an opportunity, I can take it one moment at a time, and I can just stay in the present and see what is the present moment calling me to do? What does this now moment need from me? And we can start to kind of separate out what is my automatic response and how do I actually want to respond? And so when we're talking about the inner child, we can really think of it in one of two ways. And I want to invite you all to think about this and which one resonates most for you, because this is something that is so important in healing, is understanding that everybody is going to have to approach it in a different way. Everybody's going to have something that resonates more for them. And so when we're talking about inner child work, we can look at it from an energetic perspective of, in your sacral chakra, and this energetic entity that is your inner child that carries the energy of all of your memories and experiences and is this part of you. Or we can look at it from a psychological aspect of what we're working with here is your subconscious responses and is these neural pathways that you've created since birth, that we are going in and we're rewiring. We're having to redraw the map in our brain of how the world works. And for me personally, that one makes more sense in my head because that's what I need to be able to give myself permission to access those parts of me and be really honest about what I find there. And that's, I think, what is so important about beginning this conversation here is we have to find a way that we can be honest with ourselves about what we're experiencing. We have to be honest about the fact that we have places in us that need healing, that need attention, that need love and care, and that it is possible to heal them, to progress, to grow, that we're not stuck. And that level of honesty requires a lot of insight. And that's why we're here. That's why we're hoping to help kind of shed light on this topic and bring attention to the fact that it doesn't have to be this way. You have this lens, you have this tool in inner child healing that can give you the opportunity to do it differently, to see the world differently, to heal a little bit more and wake up tomorrow and react differently than you used to.
Yeah, absolutely. And so taking that opportunity, one of my favorite ways is to recognize and start bringing our brain into a place of trying to find the joy, because so often we're wired to go to the trauma. We're wired to go to the worst case scenarios. We're wired to go to the worst memories, the scariest memories, the traumatic memories, and even to just tease out some of your favorite positive memories, your vacations, your favorite school field trips, the time when your mom did give you the attention that you were looking for, whatever it was, like, reflect on that. There's a lot of ways that we can do this inner child healing work in such a beautiful, positive lens, instead of what therapy looks like sometimes, right? Like we're trying to like stay in our scope of practice of going, we're not therapists, but there's no harm in reflecting on your most easiest, most joyous, celebratory childhood memories. There you can find your passion and purpose. And when we do this inner child work, when we focus on what were the joyful things that occurred, and in that memory, what were the emotions attached to it? Was it independence? Was it gratitude? Was it feeling loved and supported? Like, what were the emotions that went along with those memories? And when we can anchor into those positive memories, then we can bring those attributes forward into the current day even more so. And so this is the beautiful thing about sacral chakra. Like, this is your creativity manifestation center, right? And so when we can anchor in on the positive things from our childhood, then we're welcoming in more of the positive in the current day. We can start honing in on going, wow, I really recognized I loved independence as a child. And now I love independence as an adult. And this is how I'm going to celebrate those aspects of my life where I feel the same feelings that honed in then. And it can be a catalyst to going, I have that. I want that. I desire that. And notice how it moves into your passions, your purpose, right? And so this is the beautiful thing. Like, for me, it's really easy to go like, I have this memory of training a cat, how to look both ways.
Not the cat.
Right? The silly cat. Like, try to go to the earliest memory. So I was probably like 5, maybe 6. But because I was just hanging out in the front yard with a neighborhood friend, we had a cat on a leash and we were out there for hours, or at least what seems to be hours from this perspective. And it was that I didn't have an adult telling me what to do, where to go, how to do it. It was just, I'm playing with a dang cat outside, trying to teach it to look both ways. And it was the independence that really stood out to me. Like, I was just having fun alone, without supervision, without an authority figure. It's no wonder I became an entrepreneur, right? Like, I love being independent. I love coming up with my own ideas and theories and experiences, and moving from that place. And so we can recognize, this was the emotion. How does it relate to me today? And how do I want to cultivate even more of that?
Yeah. And when we look at it like that, we can really see how all of the different aspects of solar plexus, of sacral chakra that we have really come together in inner child healing. It creates this cascade, like a domino effect of, when we start with inner child healing, we are looking at that part of ourselves that needs attention, that maybe is wounded, that maybe isn't feeling as loved as it could be. And we're bringing in this invitation of, what would happen if we rewrote that story? What would happen if we did give it that love? If we did create an environment where, instead of feeling scared or unloved or unwanted or not enough or whatever it is that our inner child took on in childhood, what if we went back and we created an environment in which they feel safe? And when I say go back and create an environment, I don't mean going back into the recesses of your mind, into the past, and digging up everything that's happened to you. What I mean is inviting the memory of and the experience of your inner child to come forward and be with you. And so this can look as simple as envisioning your younger self with you while you're in your day-to-day life. And it doesn't have to be hard, it doesn't have to be scary, but it can come through those moments that do feel hard or scary. So for example, a few weeks ago, I was at the library, and I have experienced throughout my life really chronic social anxiety. I get very physiologically stressed when I am in a room with a lot of other people. And when you are aware of inner child healing, you can take a moment to pause and think about what part of me is scared right now. Because it's not me, it's not present day adult Isabel. There's no reason for me to be scared in this library. I mean, we all love libraries. They're great. There's no reason for present day me to be scared in the middle of this library right now. So which part of me is holding on to fear? Which part of me was taught that this was a situation in which I needed to be afraid? And immediately your brain is an amazing machine. Immediately it will bring up you, whenever it was that you needed that. And instead of going back and working through like, oh, what was the moment and who said what and how did I get hurt? Instead it was, okay, I see myself. I'm going to pretend, I'm going to envision that she's here with me, that I'm holding her hand, that she has someone there who could protect her, who could walk her through the library and show her that this is a safe place. This is somewhere that you can just breathe, that nothing's going to happen, that this is, this is a time to find the book cover that has the best colors or has a fun letter or whatever it is, to just be and exist and have this creativity. And in that moment, my physiological response changed because that part of me that was triggered, again, whether we're looking at it as the inner child in me at, this certain energetic state, or this psychological response in my brain that was triggered, no matter how we're looking at it, that part of me that was afraid no longer needs to be afraid because we're inviting it to the table instead of shoving it further back. And when that happens, what we do is we drop back in to our physical experience because it's not dangerous anymore. It's not something to be afraid of anymore. And this is the power of inner child healing, is we're not doing it all at once. We're not digging up all of our trauma and working through it all and trying to get rid of all of our, unconscious responses in one go. We're making it moment to moment work of right now, in this moment, I am feeling this way. In this moment, which part of me needs me the most? I saw this reel the other day on Instagram that was saying something about how you become in adulthood the adult that your inner child needed. And I found that so powerful because it's like, if we think about it, it's so true. And B, it's like that makes us perfectly equipped to make our inner child feel safe because we have everything that we needed at the time. And so we can invite them in. It can be as simple as, envisioning yourself holding younger you or holding their hand or just sitting with them and inviting them to the conversation. And when that happens, we drop back in. We've created an environment where we feel safe. And what happens then is we step into that empowerment of being able to make a conscious choice, which invites in this aspect of creativity, of how can we engage with our inner child? How can we take the next steps so that we can find what brings us joy, what brings us passion, so that we can drop back into the sensual side of sacral chakra, of the five senses, and being connected enough to our present moment self to be able to engage with the world through our five senses. This is something that I think gets dropped a lot when we talk about sacral chakra, is the importance of sensuality, because it is different than sexuality. Sensuality is very much how we are using our five physical senses to interact with the world around us. And a lot of times, if we have a lot of inner child healing to do, we're not using our five senses very well. We are very much trying to kind of squeeze ourselves up and out of our physical body because we don't want to do it. But when we can do inner child healing, when we can invite that part of us that is afraid or hurt or what have you in the present moment back in, when we can give them a space to feel safe, what we're doing is we're creating space for ourselves to be fully present. And in being fully present, we can access our senses. We can interact with the world more fully in a more engaged and intentional way, which opens the door for that creativity, for that passion, for that joy, for all of these other, this intuitive aspect of our sacral chakra, the manifesting aspect of our sacral chakra, all of the rest of it comes through when we allow ourselves to just be present with ourselves. And a lot of times being present with ourselves means being present with the inner child in us that needs our attention in that moment.
Right. And so I think this is where it can get fun. This is where it can get fun, because not only are we inviting our inner child to come forward to like be with us, oftentimes the easiest way to connect with them is through an activity that they enjoyed. Right. So whether that is hopscotch or riding a bike or baking in the kitchen or drawing or sculpting or throwing rocks in the creek, it doesn't matter. Here it comes, the multitude of options of what does your inner child love to play with? What does play look like for them? And when we invite your inner child to play and be creative, then your adult self can relax and then just enjoy the moment, because so much of us in adulthood has forgotten how to be in the moment. We're so in productivity mode. You know, I don't know how many times we've had students or clients where it's just go, 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 go. And they're not actually able to tune into the femininity of sacral chakra, of just being in the flow and going with the flow and letting our creative senses awaken and just play. And so I love this part, because if we can go, if we are like, for example, if our inner child had a toy store budget and just going in and getting anything that they wanted, and this is why it can be so unique to you. What my inner child would choose is going to be totally different from yours. And let's honor that. So there isn't a across the board subscription, as much as there's Madala coloring book artists who said, this is the thing for inner child. I'm like, yeah, that's one way, but maybe it's an easy bake oven. Maybe it's going ice skating. Maybe, like, who knows what your inner child really wants to play with. And so taking the time to inviting your inner child forward to be in the present moment with you and go and just say, like, guess what? We're going to put you and what you want to do on the calendar every week so that you can come out and play. What do you want to do this week? And just let them, like, treat your inner child like your own child, like someone that you want to love and nurture and support. And sometimes that means, just like with children, we need to give them like 4 or 5 options, 3 or 4 options, right? We can have time to go for a walk in the woods where we can make fairy houses. Maybe that's the thing. Like, so just really opening up to, I'm going to be in the present moment. I'm going to invite my inner child in, and we're going to be carefree, and we're going to play. And that is the number one activating action, if you will, to support your sacral child along with your inner child. I love it. I love this.
Yes. And if it feels weird, because it can at first, and that's okay. If it feels weird to be engaging with your inner child and being like, okay, now we're going to go play with whatever it is we're going to play with, or we're going to go build a fairy house, or whatever it is that you intuitively want to be doing. If that feels weird, then just think about it as you're going to go have fun for a little bit. You're going to engage with the part of you that has the capacity for fun and play. You're going to go give yourself time to be free from expectations, because a lot of times that's what holds us back from inner child work, is we have all of these expectations and these ideas of what is socially acceptable for an adult to do. Like, I think we can all remember the time in our life where our imagination started to kind of fall off a little bit. And a lot of times that's because it's around the same time that we started becoming aware of what was and was not socially acceptable for us to be doing. And so, can you give yourself a space where what you're doing is giving yourself freedom from those expectations and really tuning into, if those weren't there, if it was just you, what would you, your inner you, want to do right now? What would make you feel the most joy, the most present, the most creative, the most happy, the most whatever in this moment? And that kind of gives you this access point into, what do I want to do right now? And then bringing in that intention of understanding that this isn't just something that you're just, gonna do for the heck of it. You're doing it intentionally. You're doing it with that intention of connecting with your inner child, for healing your inner self, however you want to phrase it, because we have to remember that that energy follows our intention. And so we can create an even more healing environment when we do these things, when we're having fun, when we're playing, when we're being creative, when we're doing whatever it is, when we remember that our intention is so important, because we want that energy to flow. We want to release any blocks that are coming up throughout the process and just let them go. And so if that looks like for you, doing a full ceremony where you have your sage and you call in your guides and you're doing your directions and you're setting your intention and asking that any energetic releases go back to the earth, or if it's just, just telling yourself at the start, this is for my inner child, and then going into it, whatever that looks like for you is perfect. But remembering that it is so important, because it creates this sacred space where we can be safe, where we can be open to exploring and open to new experiences and open to letting our inner selves feel loved and feel seen and feel heard. And so this is, again, like Christine said, this is where inner child work can get really fun. And if you're having a hard time thinking about, well, what would my inner child want to do? There are two ways that I really love feeling into that. The first one is, like Christine said earlier, thinking about, what did I do when I was a kid? Especially, what did I do that I have forgotten about? Because a lot of times it's not necessarily going to be the first thing that comes to mind. It might be, but there might be things that you completely forgot about. Like I remember when I was a kid, I loved playing with dolls and I loved playing dress up and all of these things. But what I remember when I really think about what does my inner child need is, I remember there was a day I had this little like walker on wheels that would play music. And I figured out that I could get my sippy cup into like a notch in the corner. So I like made myself a cup holder, and I would just take my walker and I would just go around the house and I would pretend that I was a businesswoman. I think I even might have had a briefcase. I would just have my thing and I would pretend that I was going to work for the day. And I just remember feeling so important and so independent and so empowered and so excited. And I was like, heck yeah, I am a businesswoman going to work today. And just that feeling of like that creativity and that innovation and that drive. And when I think about that, it's like, that's what my inner child needs most right now. It's not the dress up, it's not the singing, it's not playing dolls, but I can feel in myself that that is the memory that I need to figure out how to tune into. I probably don't want to get my adult self a walker and pretend like I'm going to work, because I do that every day, minus the walker. And so then it's like, okay, this is where the invitation comes in of, if you can feel it, if you have that inner visceral reaction of, this is the thing that I need, this is the memory that is resonating the most, then we can look at, how can we bring that energy, that emotion, that experience back into the present day? What does that look like? And it might look completely different than you're expecting. It might be, for me, a lot of times it's rearranging my furniture. There's just something about going into a room and making executive decisions and saying, no, this is going to go here and this is going to go here, and I'm going to make something new out of my space that evokes that same energy that I had as a kid when I was walking around with my little briefcase. And so it's not always going to match exactly. It's not always going to be a carbon copy of what you did when you were a kid. It might be, you might wake up and what you need is to get out your childhood dolls, or to paint, or to play hide and seek, or whatever it might be. But it also might not be. And so we want to come back to that understanding that what we're going for here is the energy of our inner child, the energy of that experience, the emotional visceral experience of feeling that joy, feeling that creativity, feeling like we could just play and be and express and be fully present. And so, what is it in this moment today that's going to help you capture that emotion again, that's going to bring you that joy? And it could be something as simple as the other day, I was sitting at a restaurant and they had chicken tenders on the menu. And I was like, I just had this moment where I was like, I had a solid 3 years when I was a child where the only thing I would eat was either mac and cheese or chicken tenders. That was my diet for like 3 years as a child. And, I'm sure my mom got some vegetables in there somewhere, but that was what brought me joy. And so I was sitting in the restaurant and I was like, that is what I want for lunch today. That memory came up for a reason. It came up because there's part of me that needed that today. And so that's what I got for lunch. And it can be that simple. And then we can stop and we can feel into, how do I feel after that experience? How did that help? What would I do differently next time if there is anything? What emotions have come up? What can I be grateful for in this? And how can I acknowledge once again that inner part of me that needs to be seen, and let them know that they have been seen? Let them know that it is okay to want these things. It is okay to show up. It is okay to be seen, to have fun, to play, to feel safe. And so that to me is a really important part of inner child work that I don't know that we talk about very much, is that kind of closing aspect of it, of remembering that, because I think so many of us have inner children that feel guilty about wanting things, that feel scared to express their desires or things like that. And so for me and for so many of our students and clients, there is this really important aspect of, at the end of it, when you've had this experience, when you've brought them in, when you've played, when you've had this emotional exchange, of going back and letting them know, this was a great experience. This was exactly what we needed today, what I needed today, that it's okay to want these things. It's okay to feel safe. It's okay to have fun and play and engage with the world in a creative way that is not hindered by expectations. It's okay to just be present. And I think that is so important when we're talking with our inner child, because when we think about, Christine, you mentioned earlier that we're in such a productivity focused environment. And culturally, we live in a culture, in a society that pushes us into the future. Even just in, grocery shopping. We are expected on Sunday to know what we're going to want to eat every single day of the week. And, logically, that's great. Like, we need to be able to grocery shop one time a week because we couldn't do it every day, right? So there's an aspect of it that is healthy, but it's also really indicative of how future focused we are as a society. We live in a world that is constantly pushing us out of the present, whether it's our to-do list for work, or having to make our grocery list, or having to plan the next time that we need our car to get serviced, or whatever it is. We are always thinking about the future. And part of it is because our inner child is chronically stuck in the past. And so we have this pendulum swing in our energy of, subconsciously, we are stuck in the past, which is pushing us today to balance this out by swinging even farther into the future. We are designed to find balance. We are designed to find harmony and find this resting place in our energy and in our psychology, even in our physiology, right? That's what homeostasis is this balanced state in our physiological self. We are designed to find balance. And so when there is part of us that is chronically stuck in the past, AKA an inner child that hasn't been invited to heal, we're going to counteract that by pushing ourselves into the future in the present moment so that we can feel like we're balanced, when really what we're doing is we're just creating the illusion that we're resting. And so feeling into, and again, like we said earlier, being honest with yourself of, are you on that pendulum swing right now? And can you give yourself even 5 minutes this week where you truly are just present, where you're not swinging back and forth, but you're just here, even just 5 minutes, and it can radically change how you feel and how you interact with yourself and the world around you, because you've broken that cycle. You've broken the back and forth, and you've shown yourself that it is possible to just be here. And that's really what inner child healing brings us to, is this place where we can just be here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love this because sometimes we have to intentionally get on the pendulum, but it's intentionally. So we're swinging back to the past to recognize the inner child that needs the healing, needs the support, needs the love, and inviting her forward. And then we're intentionally swinging forward into the future to go, this is my desired reality. This is what I want to create, manifest. This is where I want to be. And then eventually what happens is that you recognize all of the gratitude and joy and benefits that are in the now. And so no longer do you need a swing, but sometimes in the beginning, you're doing it with intention. And I find this so interesting because for our Western world, our Western culture, it's these activating actions. Like, we need the to-dos to understand how to come back to the present moment. We need the activating actions for the inner child to do the envisioning work, to see our greatest and grandest visions for our future reality, so that we can come here now. So unlike, in Japanese Reiki, where it's like, just release all attachments, be here now. I'm like, our culture doesn't know how to do that. We weren't ingrained. We weren't supported culturally and societally to be accepting of what is. Our culture is always driving us to think bigger. What's the American dream? Like, it's always striving for bigger and better. And you don't see that in Japan. The people in the grocery store clerks are happy. The gas station attendants are happy. The people sweeping the streets are happy. At least that was my experience. And so they're just in the present moment. It didn't matter if they were in a Zen garden, weeding with chopsticks. That's what it looked like, or whatever. And so it's okay to need support. It's okay to need a mentor, a guide as you work through this. And here at Reiki Kappa University, this is one of the things that we love to do. And I had this to wrap up our conversation this morning. I was doing my movement, my dance, and being in the present moment, and just in that state of gratitude. And I remembered it wasn't too long ago that I didn't feel comfortable dancing. I didn't feel comfortable moving. I felt judged. I felt watched. I felt whatever I did. And I made myself small so I wouldn't make others feel uncomfortable. And this was the quote that came to my mind. So this is from Gabriel Roth. In many shamanic societies, if you came to the shaman or medicine person complaining of being disheartened, dispirited, or depressed, they would ask one of four questions. When did you stop dancing? When did you stop singing? When did you stop being enchanted by stories? When did you stop finding comfort in the sweet territory of silence? Where we have stopped dancing, singing, and being enchanted by stories, or finding comfort in the silence, is where we have experienced the loss of soul. Dancing, singing, storytelling, and silence are the four universal healing salves. And I felt like that was so potent for today's conversation, because it really shows you that it's the present. It's being present with the song, being present with the story, being present with the dance. That really helps you in your healing process. And so if you haven't danced, if you haven't sang, if you haven't listened to a story or opened a book, this is your invitation to come into the silence and come into the present, to be here now, to be just okay with wherever you're at, and to dance, to sing, to move, and welcome your inner child into your space.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you all, as always, for showing up, for being present for this conversation. Know that as you're working through these things, as you are answering those questions for yourself, and you're inviting yourself to be fully present on all levels, know that we are here to support you if you feel like having a mentor, having someone to be there and hold space for you is going to be beneficial, because it's okay to need that. It's okay to need someone to hold your hand along the journey, or to sit with you, or to give you guidance on here's where you're headed next. And so if you want that, know that we are here. Know that Reiki Cafe University truly is here to support you, whether that is over in the Facebook group, where we have a fantastic community of Reiki practitioners and spiritual seekers who are happy to be there for you to answer your questions, or whether that's joining one of our courses, our programs, or working with Christine and myself one-on-one. Know that there are options available, and no matter where you are on your journey, no matter what you're experiencing or what you're working through, we have a space for you here.
Yeah, I love doing this work. I find it so potent, and this is why it's part of our shamanic Reiki practitioner training. It's part of our integrated Reiki training. And we just want to invite you to feel into what would that feel like if you could be quiet, if you can be present, if you could dance and sing once again. And so take the time, honor yourself, honor exactly where you're at, and just be.